Chapter 2 Early Chinese Kings, Emperors, Shamans, Gods, and Myths, before and around 3000 BCE. Written and produced by Thomas Ty Seal. Copyright Thomas Ty Seal, unless otherwise noted. Some knowledge of Chinese history and transliteration will help us stay oriented, pardon the pun. I apologize in advance for my limited ability to pronounce Chinese words correctly. As to writing, there are two transliteration systems in Chinese, Pinyin and Wade-Giles. Generally, I use Pinyin and put the Wade-Giles version in parentheses. Well, here's the first few Chinese dynasties and their dates. The Xia dynasty, the Shang dynasty, the Western Zhou dynasty, the Eastern Zhou dynasty, the Qin dynasty, and the Western Han dynasty. We'll start by looking at what seems to have been the characteristics of ancient Chinese religion even before the Xia dynasty. We'll then examine a few popular myths of uncertain origin that have survived the passage of time and which Chinese use to explain the beginning of creation and civilization. It's important to note that much of what we know about the earliest times in China, as Joseph Campbell put it, are the productions rather of a Confucian forest of pencils than of any good earth, that is, archaeologic finds. That is, we rely on this Confucian forest because there is little recorded prior to Confucius, who lived about 500 BCE, and his school of disciples. Thus, all ancient dates, as well as the biographies and beliefs of the ancient Chinese, are largely speculative. China is, of course, a huge country, and before it was unified about 200 BCE, it consisted of a patchwork of kingdoms and villages, initially growing around China's great river systems, especially the Yellow River in the north, the Yangtze in Middle China, and the Pearl River in the south. As in most other ancient kingdoms, each Chinese kingdom was hierarchically structured, and evidence supports that early Chinese religion venerated both living rulers and those who had died. Royal ancestors were called Di, deities or emperors. The highest of them was called Shangdi. These are still the names Chinese use for the word God. These god kings, living and dead, ruled by divine right. It's also safe to assume that each separate Chinese kingdom developed its own set of gods. Nature gods and ancestors would have been the first to arise, and then myths would have developed around them. Those who could read the signs of nature, shamans, Wu and Chinese, were in high demand among the rulers and were needed for such things as preparing altars and collecting offerings, inviting the blessings of ancestor kings, interpreting dreams, reading earthly and celestial omens, summoning rain, predicting the best time for events, exorcising demons, healing through herbs and elixirs, and devising talismans for protection and prosperity. It appears that, as in other places, shamans often wore animal skins, took mind-altering drugs, and performed their duties through ceremonial dances meant to induce trances that allowed the shaman to receive guidance from spirits. Part of their duties involved presiding over blood sacrifices. Many Taoist shamans still practice in much the same way. The reign of kings and shamans was resilient and extended well into the historic dynasties of China. In 1899 of the current era, the Chancellor of the Imperial Academy of China was given dragon bone medicine, a common treatment for malaria. Usually this medicine is ground, but when it was delivered to the Chancellor, he and a learned friend noticed that the bones were covered in ancient Chinese script. When he tried to discover the source of the bones, he met with resistance from the seller. 9 years later, another scholar found that the bones came from an area outside the city of Anyang, the one-time capital of the Shang dynasty. These dragon bone inscriptions turned out to be the earliest record of written Chinese language and date from the Shang and Zhou dynasties. Locals had been grinding the bones down and selling them as medicine. The bones were not, of course, dragon bones, but usually the scapula of ox or the shells of tortoises. When scholars decoded the inscriptions, they found that they were questions and answers that people had received through divination. Many were records of questions and answers put to the king, such as, "Is it time to plant? Should we go to war? Should I raise taxes?" Divination was an ingenious way for the king to evade responsibility. If things went wrong, the reader of the oracle bones was at fault. The process of creating the inscriptions seems to have been that a person would ask a question to the king or shaman. The date and person's name would then be carved onto the shell or bone as an introduction. Then the question, also called the charge, to the oracle would be carved. Next, a heated rod would be placed on the underside of the bones or shells. The heat would cause cracks on the opposite side of the bone or shell, and the king or diviner would read the answer, which is called a prognostication, which would be recorded on the bone or shell. Finally, whether the prophecy occurred would be recorded as verification. Here's an example. Introduction. On Renzi, the king made cracks and divined. Question. We will hunt at Wu. Going and coming back, there will be no disasters. Prognostication. The king read the crack and said, auspicious. Verification. We caught 1 wild buffalo, 1 tiger, and 7 foxes. The dragon was likely among the earliest of Chinese gods. Piles of stones from 8,000 years ago in the shape of what seems to be a dragon have been found in the Neolithic ruins near Shanghai village in Liaoning, which borders North Korea. Several C-shaped jade dragons, about 8 inches high, dating from over 5,000 years ago, have been found in Hongshan culture villages in Inner Mongolia. With each successive dynasty, the dragon image slowly evolved. This one is still C-shaped, but begins to look a little more like what we think of now as the Chinese dragon. As the dragon form evolved, stories associated with the dragon also evolved. While Chinese dragons likely began as water or rain gods, more and more powers were gradually added to them. They could fly in the clouds, hide in the water, change color to blend in with backgrounds, and change shape and size at will. Dragons became a useful character for mythmakers. It is said that the legendary Fu Xi, whom you'll soon meet, could assume the shape of a dragon, as you see here. One myth goes that the Yellow Emperor, Wang Di, is said to have used a serpent as a symbol in war, and that every time he conquered a tribe, he added a piece of their symbol to his serpent, eventually producing a dragon with a serpent's body, eagle talons, deer antlers, and fish scales, the Chinese dragon we know today. Clear progress toward our modern Chinese dragon is evident in art from the late Zhou dynasty, ending about 256 BCE, and certainly by the Han dynasty which followed it. The founder of the Han dynasty claimed that he was conceived after his mother dreamt of a dragon. Over time, dragons became known as messengers of the emperor and symbols of imperial power. As with most early human societies, dozens of gods and fantastic myths eventually populated Chinese imagination and culture. Knowing when these gods and myths became popular, however, is difficult, as when written traces are found, It is usually unknown how old the story was before it was written down and where it originated. A very partial list of Chinese gods of varying importance in different times and different locations would include the following. There was a creator god, a sun goddess, a moon goddess, a rain god, a wind god, a goddess of the sea, a goddess of fertility, of wealth, of war and sex, of thunder, and his goddess's wife, various star and constellation gods, a god of hell, mercy, and later the 8 immortals. There's also the trickster monkey king Sun Wukong, and add to this thousands of ghosts and spirits. Many of these gods probably belong to the period before China was unified, around 200 BCE. Many others were doubtlessly lost in unification, and many more were clearly added after unification, especially as Hindu and Buddhist influences entered China. As the ancient past in China is dimly perceived, all we can say about Chinese creation myths is that they are of unknown age and origin. The first written records of these dates from the Three Kingdoms period, about 200 years of the Common Era. But the story is presumed to be ancient and is known by many modern Chinese. As with the biblical version of creation, the Chinese story states that in the beginning there was chaos. Chaos gradually condensed into a cosmic egg in which yin and yang were balanced. Yin and yang is a very old Chinese concept. In this egg, a giant named Pangu resided, coiled up sleeping. The name Pangu is formed from the character to coil and the character for ancient. When Pangu woke up and stretched, the egg broke and he separated heaven yang and earth yin. The myth of the cosmic egg is found in many cultures. For example, the cosmic egg is Hiranyagarbha in the Rig Veda of Hinduism. To keep heaven and earth separated, Pangu stood between them. The myth of separating heaven from earth is found in many cultures. For example, in Sumerian myth, the high god Enlil separated heaven An from earth Ki. After a long time, Pangu died. The story goes that his left eye became the sun, his right eye the moon, his hair became the Milky Way, his body became the features of earth, his breath the wind, his blood the rivers. Humans were formed from parasites, yuck, that the wind blew from his body. A very similar story is told in Vedic Hinduism. In most versions, Pangu is alone. In one, however, he has children. Another version has it that the egg itself, shell, white, and yolk, once cracked, became the substance of the universe. Another version says that Pangu was aided by a turtle, a unicorn, a phoenix, and a dragon to create the universe. Another version says that Pangu carved out the features of the earth with a hammer. Another myth from the Zhuang people in southern China resembles in part the biblical story of Noah. It holds that once there was a great flood with only 2 survivors, Pan and Guo, in the Zhuang language. From them a mass of flesh shaped like a whetstone was born, which they carved into humans. In some of the early Chinese myths, it is Fuxi, not Pangu, who created heaven and earth. In other versions, Pangu died and his body became the earth from which the goddess Huashu arose and gave birth to twins, Fuxi and Nuwa, who then later married and produced the first humans, molding them from clay, as in the biblical version. Fuxi and Nuwa are often represented as joined dragons, as shown here. They are said to have lived in the mythical Kunlun mountain, not the modern Kunlun mountains. The mythical mountains were said to be in different places, including the center of the earth or somewhere in the far west. Fuxi is also depicted carrying the sun disk with a golden crow inside, as shown at left below, while Nuhua holds a moon disk containing a toad, as shown at right. In some accounts, Fuxi is considered the first emperor of China and the first of the three sovereigns soon to be discussed. In these cases, Fuxi and Nuhua are traditionally dated to around 2900 BCE. After Pangu created heaven and earth, the story goes that earth was ruled by three sovereigns. One mythical account of the three sovereigns, recorded in the history records of Sima Jian during the Han Dynasty, listed these as the heavenly sovereign, Tianhuang, who ruled for 18,000 years and filled the earth with water, suppressed chaos, and chose able leaders to rule the tribes. The earthly sovereign, Dihuang, who made the sun and moon move, he ruled 11,000 years. And the human or Tai sovereign, Renhuang, who divided China into 9 provinces and ruled 45,000 years. Clearly, we are still in the legendary period of Chinese history. There are actually 5 different sets of the 3 sovereigns or 3 August listed in the records of old. All versions include Fuxi and Shennong, the divine farmer, but vary on the third. In the spring and autumn annals from the Zhou dynasty, the 3 sovereigns are listed as Fuxi, who is said to have been able to assume the shape of a dragon and is credited with many important civilizational advances, such as how to fish with nets, hunt with iron weapons, and tame rivers by constructing canals and dikes. He's also credited with advancing moral laws and inventing a musical instrument. Nuhua, who is the sister wife of Fuxi, as you've seen, tradition says that after a great flood only Fuxi and his wife Nuhua survived, and that they, like Noah and his family, repopulated the earth. Shennong, who taught the ancient Chinese agriculture, including the nature and use of herbs. During the Han Dynasty, the Yellow Emperor replaced Shennong as the 3rd sovereign. After the 3 sovereigns, tradition says 5 or 10 emperors ruled. Once again, we are in the legendary pre-dynastic period of Chinese history. There are 5 different variants of the 5 emperors. A list from the previously mentioned history records, written about 85 BCE, lists them as follows. The Yellow Emperor, Huang Di, is the first and most famous of the 5 emperors. He is said to have ruled 2697 to 2598 BCE and is considered the founding ancestor of Han Chinese. Legend says that he invented Chinese characters, silk, and Chinese medicine. Chinese historians think that Huang Di may have been a ruler of people living east of the Yellow River, where it runs north to south in the Shanxi province, near the Fin River. Their descendants later migrated further south, where they founded the Xia culture, from which the Xia dynasty evolved. A book whose contents are attributed to him, The Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine, compiled in the 2nd century BCE, established the pathways or meridians through which energy, qi, flows in the human body. The other 4 of the 5 emperors are as follows. There's Zhuanzi, was the grandson of the Yellow Emperor and the 2nd of the 5 emperors. He is said to have invented the Chinese calendar and introduced religion and astrology. The Emperor Ku is the 3rd of the 5 emperors and the great-grandson of the Yellow Emperor. He is said to have invented many musical instruments and to have composed music. Emperor Yao is the fourth emperor. He invented the game Weiqi, also known as Go, and is recognized as a virtuous role model. In the Book of Documents, it is said that he chose his successor according to moral, not inherited qualities. And Emperor Shun is known for his devotion. It's good to keep in mind that in the I Ching and Zhuangzi have a different list of the 5 emperors. There's also a list of 10 foundational emperors, which has the first 5 above, plus these listed here. The modern traditional Chinese view of heaven is that it is ruled by the Jade Emperor, not the sovereigns or emperors we've just reviewed. This remarkable shift occurred under Emperor Shenzong of the Song Dynasty, who had a dream of the Jade Emperor in about the year 1000 of the Common Era. Prior to that, the Jade Emperor was largely a mythical folk hero residing in the background. After the year 1000, however, he, like dragons, became ubiquitous in China. In many ways, the Jade Emperor, Yu Di, is the most important thing to understand about traditional Chinese religion, as he serves as the sovereign of heaven. Chinese heaven is modeled after an earthly empire, and vice versa, and the Jade Emperor rules it. Even the gods are often subjects of or are emperors. Christians seek to carry out the Lord's Prayer and bring God's kingdom to earth. Chinese are engaged in the same pursuit. To do this, they needed a model of heaven ruled by a good and divine sovereign, to wit, the Jade Emperor. The Jade Emperor probably originated among common folk as the archetype for the ideal emperor. As such, myths naturally and gradually grew around him. Some myths say he was created when Pangu created the universe. Others say that he was a valiant soldier in the Zhou dynasty and named Zhang Denglai, whose entire battalion was killed, but who in the afterlife received the high honor of becoming the chief god, not a creator god, but the model for order and justice. In another version, he was born to a chaste queen who was unable to have a child until Lao Tzu appeared in a dream and granted her wish to become pregnant in a miraculous conception like Jesus. As a child, the future Jade Emperor was said to develop faster than other children and was patient and kind. When his father died, he assumed the throne where he devoted his time to helping the needy. When this mission was accomplished, it is said he abdicated the throne and went to study Taoist philosophy. Eventually, he became an immortal and a powerful deity where he is known for his restraint, fairness, and mercy, serving as a role model for many Chinese leaders. As mentioned above, during the Song Dynasty, in about the year 1000 of the Common Era, Emperor Shenzong claimed to have received revelations from the Jade Emperor. The revelations were so powerful that the emperor incorporated the Jade Emperor into the state-sponsored Chinese religion. This transformed the relatively obscure Jade Emperor into a major figure in Chinese religion. Thereafter, all members of the Chinese pantheon as well as the royal court had to present themselves before the Jade Emperor and account for their actions on a fixed day every year, often on New Year's Day. Good deeds were then rewarded and bad deeds justly punished. The Jade Emperor also received reports of the actions of common people from the household gods, especially the kitchen god. He then judged them all as well. Chinese have a cute story about how the calendar came into being. The story goes that the Jade Emperor needed to provide a simple name for the years so that people could remember them. So he invited all animals to a race. Their names would provide the names of the years according to the order in which they finished. During the race, the animals got involved in all sorts of adventures, from deeds of heroism to acts of guile and subterfuge. The rat, for example, won the race by jumping on the back of the ox. By contrast, the dragon, who could easily have won because he could fly, stopped to help villagers caught in a flood. He also stopped to help the rabbit cross a river and to make rain for farmers who needed it. The pig, slowest of all, stopped many times to eat and drink. The order in which they crossed the finish line is as shown above. The name of each of these 12 animals recurs every 12 years in the Chinese calendar. Traditionally, the 12 months of the Chinese lunar calendar were also represented by these animals in order. The Chinese New Year generally begins in late January or early to mid-February. While the Jade Emperor organizing a race among the animals to determine the name of the years makes a nice story, it is, of course, just a story. The earliest evidence of the use of the zodiac symbols for the Chinese calendar dates from artifacts from the Warring States period, roughly 500 to 200 BCE, of the Zhou dynasty. Some think that the use of animal symbols for the calendar was brought to China via the Silk Road. Others believe that this use was native to China. The 12-year cycle of the Chinese calendar is believed to have originated from Jupiter's orbit around the Sun every 12 years. The Chinese zodiac is different from the Western one. While the Chinese zodiac is based on the calendar, the Western one is based on the positions of constellations relative to Earth. As you'll see, the Chinese zodiac plays a very large role in Chinese metaphysics. The Chinese lunisolar calendar evolved from earlier Chinese calendars and counts as a month the length of time it takes for the moon to go around the Earth, and counts as a year the time it takes for the Earth to go around the Sun. According to tradition, this Chinese calendar was invented by the Yellow Emperor in the year 2697 BCE, and at present has completed 78 60-year cycles, the 78th beginning in 1984. Evidence of the use of the calendar dates from the Shang Dynasty, from about 1600 to 1000 BCE. Each day of the week was associated with one of the 5 elements of change: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, in that order, an order with metaphysical importance that will be discussed in later chapters. With a 10-day week, a Chinese month was 3 weeks, and there were 12 months. A leap month was added every 3 years. Each of the day elements could be yang or yin. Odd-numbered days are yang, even-numbered days are yin. So the first day would be wood yang, and the second day wood yin. The third day would be fire yang, and the fourth day fire yin, etc. Months and years also have associated elements of change. Each year, month, day, and hour has 2 names. The first name is called the heavenly or celestial stem, and is one of the 5 elements of change mentioned earlier: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. The second name is called the earthly branch, and uses the 12 zodiac symbols. I'll illustrate how this works for years on the next slide. As you can see in the 60-year table at right, there are 5 celestial stems, with each stem repeated twice: wood, wood, fire, fire, earth, earth, metal, metal, water, water. Then the sequence repeats. The associated heavenly branch sequence starts with the 12 Chinese zodiac signs, beginning with the rat, then the ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, etc., until all 12 are used. The stems and branches continue to be combined in order until the 10th celestial stem, water, has been paired with the 10th earthly branch, rooster, as shown by the rose-colored box at right. The celestial stem sequence then starts over with wood, while the earthly branch sequence continues until the 11th dog and 12th pig branch is paired with the heavenly stem, as shown in the green shaded boxes. The branch sequence then starts over with rat, while the celestial stem continues where it left off, with fire, which comes after wood, as shown at right. This pattern continues until the 60th year, then the whole thing starts over. Each 60-year period is called a cycle. Each cycle consists of an upper, middle, and lower period, each of 20 years. Note that time is thus cyclical and repeats every 60 years. Traditionally, Chinese believe that you can predict future situations and plan how to address them based on past cycles. Thus, the calendar had spiritual significance for them. In 1972, 3 tombs of high-ranking aristocrats dating from the 2nd century BCE were discovered at the Mahuangdui archaeological site near Shaanxi in the Hunan province of southeastern China. One of the tombs belonged to Zhencui, called Lady Dai. She was buried in the innermost of 4 nested coffins, with the inner 3 coffins being highly decorated. Laid face down on the top of the innermost coffin was a perfectly preserved T-shaped funeral banner, which provided important insights into religious beliefs from this time period. The upper part of Lady Dai's funeral banner depicted Han and earlier Zhou-era beliefs about immortality. Scholars think the banner likely recreated the myth of the archer Hou Yi and his beautiful wife Shang Yi, goddess of the moon. Both are shown at the center bottom of the banner. Follow the bouncing oval. One version of the story goes that Dijun, an ancient Chinese emperor, and his wife Zhehi, the sun goddess, had 10 sons as children who lived as sunbirds in a mulberry tree in the east. Every day of the Chinese 10-day week, one child would leave the tree and become a sun. The vines of the mulberry tree and some of the 9 suns, shown as red dots, are depicted on the right-hand side of Lady Dai's funeral banner, as shown here within the yellow box. Also in the tree is the imperial dragon. During the reign of the Jade Emperor, some versions say Emperor Yao or Dijun himself, the mischievous sunbird children all flew out at once, scorching the earth. Frantic, the emperor called his archer Hao Yu, and with great sadness commanded him to shoot down all but one of the sons, that is, 9 of his 10 children. As a result of Hao Yu's heroic actions, fertility was restored to the land, and the wife of the Jade Emperor, the Queen Mother of the West, who has complete control over life, death, creation, and destruction, gave Yi the elixir of immortality as a reward. When a thief broke into Yi's house to steal the elixir, Shang quickly drank it to prevent him from getting it. She then became an immortal, rising to the moon, shown at the top center of the banner. The serpent-like figure surrounding Shang is likely Nuhua, the creator goddess in Chinese mythology. On the moon, Chang'e became the moon goddess and lived alone and forlorn with her pet rabbit and a frog who lived on the moon, shown at the upper left of the banner. In another version, Yi became a tyrant, and fearing that if he became immortal, he would subjugate people forever, Chang'e stole the elixir and drank it, saving the people. In yet another version, Yi and Chang'e were immortals, cast out of heaven by a remorseful Jade Emperor who had asked Yi to shoot down the 9 sons, which were his rebellious children. Shangyi was very sad at having to be immortal, so Yi begged the Queen Mother of the West for the elixir of immortality, so that he and his wife could be immortal again. She granted the request, but Shangyi drank the whole thing, leaving Yi behind. Shangyi is honored during the Moon or Autumn Moon Festival every year. As China began its long and tortured trek toward unification, it clearly lost or jettisoned many of the beliefs held by smaller, less powerful, or defeated kingdoms. Over time, some of the gods and myths of different kingdoms were merged with other beliefs, while others were repressed or forgotten. Fantastic new myths also emerged to explain things. This process continued for a very long time. What survived the ever-changing stories of ancient times in China was the belief, shared in many cultures, that the universe arose out of chaos and that the gods have created order in heaven, which it is our obligation to create on earth. To do this, most ancient cultures reasoned kings and emperors are needed. Ancient Chinese religion is characterized by a deep respect for order and authority. Heaven is occupied by the rulers of the past who empower earthly rulers. Modern Chinese respect for and obedience to authority traces back thousands of years and is rooted in the ancient belief system we've reviewed in this chapter. We also see a deep reverence for nature in ancient China, a reverence that is carried forward to our present day. As we've seen, numbers too took on spiritual meaning in ancient China. Everything arose from the one egg. There are 2 primary characteristics, yin and yang. There are 3 heavenly sovereigns, 5 elements of natural change, and 5 ancient emperors. As time unfolded, the number 8 became loaded with significance, and the number 9, the greatest single digit, became a symbol of perfection and completeness. Then there are 10 days in a week and 12 zodiac signs, the lunar cycles in a year. And when these and other numbers are employed in the Chinese calendar, they are not just a convenient tool for naming units of time, but as you'll see in coming chapters, they came to represent a divine order imposed on all things. Even today, Chinese excellence in math and fascination with numeric order is evident in everything from engineering to metaphysics. So this ends Chapter 2. In Chapter 3, we continue exploring the foundational elements in what would become Chinese Taoism.